a lot of people's experience of retreat within Triratna, unless they've been to a Buddha Field event, they'll be used to everything happening indoors. A lot of this event takes place outdoors. So our main meditation venue is the Shrine Room Marquee. We're eating under canvas. There's a campfire that people sit around. There's other canvas structures for various workshops. So there's that whole element of living and practicing outside in the elements, with all that they bless us with, from sunshine through to rain.
The site is disintegrating.
It grew out of FWBO Day, which happened over a number of years. A few years back, the European Chairs Assembly wanted to build on that and create something which was more international and more retreat-like. The vision is really to, I suppose, give people a sense of community, the wider Triratna community, people coming together and practicing, enjoying each other's company, putting up with torrential downpours and mud, and just experiencing something very positive.
It's really marvellous. There's so many positive people, and there's so much to learn and so much to experience. The shrine room and sitting and meditating in amongst so many people is just absolutely marvellous. It's really inspiring being around so many people who, are all interested in studying the Dharma and all meditating, just being together. I think what touches me is the kindness and the positivity of the people here, and I'm really looking forward to the rest of the retreat, especially as it's stopped raining now, which is really wonderful. I didn't realise there was so much rain could fall from the sky, and I live in Ireland.
It brings together the Triratna Chairs Assembly and then Buddha Field, and Buddha Field are fantastic. They take care of feeding 400 people and providing the big canvas structures for events to take place in. And then there's Adhisthana as the host, so the host venue. Previously it's been Tara Loka. Adhisthana is now Sangharakshita's home, and it's very much a focus for Sangharakshita's legacy. And so I think that's giving, although Sangharakshita is not able to play a part in the retreat, I think there's a very definite sense of his presence and his influence.
Even though, because Sangharakshita is here, we may not see him, but it feels like it, and I think that's what they were trying to do, and I think they've achieved it. I was talking to someone about it over lunch and saying that how is it different, and we both thought that there was some reverence about it. It's an amazing place. I'm really glad I came. That was part of the reason for coming. I'm very much a preparation girl. I watched everything on the internet and did all that. Sangharakshita arriving and what it was like before. It's really lovely. I'm really glad I came. We've only just started.
Is it a retreat or is it a festival? I think it's an interesting question. I think there'll be a range of sort of opinions and feelings about that. I think it is a retreat with an experience of being on retreat, of stepping away from one's usual life and world and into something where one is, more explicitly in contact with the Dharma and able to practice with other people. But it's also got that sort of ease and communality that you can have with a sort of more sort of festival type experience. So I think in a way it's a bit of both. is quite a range of, from people who maybe have just done a meditation course or had very little experience, through to, people who've been ordained 25, 30 years. And I suppose another feature of this retreat is that it's family friendly.
Well, at New Year, we were discussing what we'd like to do in 2014. And Gunapal said, I'd like to go to the international retreat.
I wanted to come mainly for the kids, mainly for Eva, who's 7. She got time off school to come here. Yeah, and it was just the opportunity to be with other children that have got, parents that are Buddhists.
And Megha, for a third time, says to the Buddha, okay. But it says, whatever.
I'm just keen that she is introduced to very positive qualities within Buddhism early on. She connects very strongly with lighting candles and making an offering to the Buddha.
A big round of applause for the Megha.
There's also quite a wide range of workshops which hopefully reflect the diversity of approaches within Triratna and various different things, meditation through to, communication workshops and exploring. Well, particular emphasis on this retreat is, the Bodhisattva aspiration to take the Dharma out into the world. I suppose one of the things that is currently talked about in the Triratna community is this whole thing of moving beyond ego clinging, in some measure opening up to and responding to the suffering of others, and that being an integral part of the spiritual life. We've had 3 main talks. The first was by Vajragupta, and in a way he was setting the ground and exploring the whole vision of the Bodhisattva path, this very central strand in Buddhist thought and teaching and aspiration of, progressively cultivating compassion in the face of suffering and responding. We had a talk by Vardaka in which he was exploring, a very current issue in terms of the sort of economic model that drives the world at the moment, noticing the benefits that come out of that, but also seeing the suffering that arises and exploring how Buddhists might respond to that, both as individuals but also as a collective community.
So what we're dealing with, I think, is the mental poison of ignorance, and we are really not aware enough of the consequence of our actions, and it's a spiritual issue.
Mokshni was particularly looking at the issues around climate change and the degradation of the environment, and again, how can we respond as Buddhists? Quite a few people have commented that something magical comes into being. There's quite a lot of hard work goes in to bring it into being, and then we've had about 300 people turn up over the weekend, and with all the teams there's about 400 of us here. A retreat like this is it's a very good opportunity to recontact connections with people which are meaningful. Actually, they're based on something very meaningful, and it's just very moving, because we all have an effect. I think in a way that we don't realise, we all have an effect. Just being here together, experiencing this together, we're having an effect on each other, and which endures into the future. It's sending ripples out into the future, and we have to really take that seriously, I think.
Make gains in my acting thus. Go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings. My personality throughout my existences, my possessions, and my merit in all 3 ways, I give up without regard to myself.
It was a cheerfully anarchic night.
Especially after the wall came down, Banti was keen on having a big, strong center in Berlin, because Berlin was about to become the German capital again, which it wasn't when the country was divided.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, reporting tonight from Berlin.
From the Berlin Wall specifically, take a look at them. They've been there since last night. They are here in the thousands. They are here in the tens of thousands.
And also Europe started to come together again after these 40 years of just having the wall and the fence and having the two big blocks which divided the world. We walked along the path here, and then we sat down on this bench here. I just asked him, well, Banti, what do you think would be the most important for Berlin? And he immediately said, well, that you get along with the new center.
Ja, ich denke, man muss das wirklich
He has given the money to us via Windhorse already 10 years ago, which was 300,000 euros. We have looked for a center for a few years already, and the right thing didn't turn up. And 3 or 4 months later, we found the new center finally, less than a kilometer from here.
Gegen andere agieren, sowohl bei uns im Hause als auch hier in der Gesamtgemeinschaft, nicht? Ja. Ja.
Wir wollen ja noch hier ein Logo, ein Schild anbringen, buddhistisches Tor Berlin. Berlin is a collection of several old villages, which we call Kiez. Kreuzberg is one of them. Yeah, but now, after the wall came down 20 years ago, it's a very, very central area. And it still has a bit of an alternative touch and has become a young city and young people searching for something which gives meaning to their life. They try to teach meditation and Buddhism from the first day, not to split up Buddhism and meditation, and do courses from the very beginning. So we have 6 weeks courses.
Das ist dann die nächste Behauptung. Auch in der Familie, ja. Das spielt sich tagtäglich, glaube ich, sowas ab.
People can continue through a following up course, which is also another 6 weeks. And the team who leads the course is going with the people. So there is the possibility to, from the very beginning, to form a group. People can go to the Sangha night, which is also at the same day. In Berlin, we have a tradition in really trying to work together the different cultures and the different approaches of life. And Berlin is known now as quite a free city. So it's more or less a melting place of so many cultures.
I think Karuna appeals are an opportunity to become somebody else, become a new person, move away from your fixed self-view of who you think you are. It requires that you go beyond yourself time and time again.
Hello.
Hi. And also an opportunity to express generosity. think on these 2 appeals in Manchester that we've just done, well, it's just been such a positive environment to create Sangha. I've just been so inspired watching the care that we've had for each other, actually. Everybody has gone through their ups and downs, their ins and outs, moving towards each other and withdrawing, and all of that stuff that happens when you really meet yourself and others.
Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya.
Part of being on a door is the fact that you're just connecting with people and it's as natural as possible. So in a way, when you have a conversation with someone, it's not just about one person talking. You know, there's in conversations there is space and there's chance for kind of people to interact with each other. So there's these moments on the doors where, and I sort of like to do it as a practice actually, where I consciously leave space to the point where it's a little bit uncomfortable. But what I'm doing there is kind of tuning in with what's happening in my body and just noticing the fear, so going to my belly, my heart, noticing the fear and kind of breathing into it and relaxing and leaving space to see what emerges, so giving eye contact to the person on the door and just letting something else to kind of come through so that they're not in their habitual pattern of like, you're a charity fundraiser and I'm a householder and this is what we do, you say this, I say that, there's this pattern and then you go away and leave me to my night. It's like, it's not like that. There's space then for something more than that to emerge, and there's space for creativity between both of us, not just from my side but from the householder as well.
Just good connection there.
The whole structure of the appeal and its training is really, really good, and it's been set up over the years through experienced trainers, and so part of our structure of the training is that we do role plays.
Do you remember me, Sangamani?
From
I do,
the
yeah.
Kalima Trust? In a way, it's a bit like entering into your imagination, because it's hard to imagine just going up to a stranger's door, knocking, asking them to read this booklet and consider supporting a charity they've never even heard of. They're sort of practicing knocking on a door in a safe environment with the support and guidance of your fellow community members and your team leaders. And they can be really funny, and can really see your ways, the things that you do, and just helps you bring more and more awareness to lots of things, especially your views, I think, as well. So some people find it really difficult to ask for money. So it really is like we're training in fearlessness, and you do need to train in that. You need to practice it, because there's something about knocking on a stranger's door that is scary. I still feel fear now, and in a way it's all right. The fears become familiar, and I just know that that's there, and I just still knock, and it comes and goes, of course.
Yeah, so they are getting involved. At the beginning of the appeal on the doors, I realised that I was sort of going into fundraiser mode, where I was sort of being my idea of what a fundraiser was meant to be, as opposed to really just being myself and just being Terry fundraising. So I think I realised that after the first sort of couple of weeks, and then changed that, and then that just feels so much better and is much more effective as well.
It's been completely transformative. I'm a completely different person from what I was before I started the appeal. I know Lucy from the centre already, from the Nottingham Buddhist Centre, and she said, I know where you are in your career, I know you've got a bit of space, so I don't know if you fancy doing an appeal. My initial reaction was, no chance. I could never do anything like that. And then I thought about it, she asked me again, thought about it a bit more, and she asked me again. I just thought, hang on, this is something that I want to do. It'd be really valuable spiritually. I'll be benefiting people who need it. I just thought, why not? What else have I got to do at the time? Just thought, why not? Let's just give it a go.
Hello.
Oh no, great. You'll see it. Let's open that and take your plate too.
I guess when I started, I didn't really know where I was. Didn't really have any kind of life plan or any idea of where I was going to be going.
I've always kind of jumped around quite a bit, with jobs and with living in different places and not really knowing where I was fitting in. So I guess doing this, I think it's just opened me up to my potential. Yeah, spiritual community, living together. It's been one of the best decisions that I've ever made, really. Friendships as well, really deep friendships. People really see me for who I am, which is really important, and I feel like I've genuinely not had that before, So it's quite a big thing.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 3 times.
One of the things that sort of drew me to want to do an appeal was the chance to live in community. The actual experience of living with other Dharma practitioners, knowing that sort of we're all there, we're all striving toward the same goal. I've just found such a really wonderful, amazing experience. I think I've really been able to see myself much more clearly, to be aware of sort of areas for growth, really. I remember one day feeling a bit off colour, feeling a bit sort of emotional, but not really wanting to have to deal with that, and then being gently sort of prompted and are you okay? Are you really okay? What's going on there? What does that look mean? Which at the time sort of felt, I really don't want to be doing this. But actually it's so useful, because it made me then look at myself and say, okay, yeah, this is what's going on. This is how I'm feeling right now. I think I feel like I've sort of expanded, sort of grown, partly due to the cake, but...
I did an appeal in Birmingham a few years ago, and we went to visit Bhante as part of the appeal. And before we went, we were sort of talking about why appeals are so transformative for people spiritually. And we came up with all these sort of theories, oh yeah, it's because you're reflected back again. And, we had lots of ideas about why appeals are transformative, because we could all really feel that was happening and knew that was the case. Amalavajra asked Bhante, why do you think Karuna appeals, door-knocking appeals, are so transformative? And he said so simply, because you're doing something for others. Yeah, it was so simple, and yet it was like the crux of what we're doing. We're going out with the Dalits in mind, and that's why we're doing it, even when it's hard, even when we don't want to go out, or it's cold, or it's raining, or we've had a really hard day and we feel like we want to stay at home eating chocolate or chips. It's like, we go out because we know that there's these people in India that can't do that. And it's that sense of like going beyond yourself, actually, that is what makes appeals transformative.
Yeah, just thinking about
As it's Buddhist Action Month during June, it's great because the Manchester Buddhist Centre have really sort of been advertising this a lot, so we've seen and heard about it a lot since we've been in Manchester, which is great. And I think as a community we thought, we'd like to do something about this. We'd like to sort of join in with that in some way. Most of us had pretty much been vegan before we came to the community, but not completely. So we decided that this would be a vegan community. So we've been shopping at Unicorn, which is the local vegan supermarket. And we also decided that during Buddhist Action Month we'd also try and reduce our packaging and try and shop more locally.
Recently we did a presentation or an appeal for people to come and take part in Karuna appeals in the movement. So Lucy and I and Sarah and Terry, we stood up in front of about 300 odd people at the international retreat, and I was terrified. And I think we probably all remembered our training, so we do a lot of work on body awareness and working with Vedana, working with unpleasant sensations in the body, not letting them rule us, just being aware of what's happening and doing it anyway. And we had a really, really positive response. Lots of people came up and offered themselves to sort of enter the flames of transformation and do an appeal. And what was interesting was a lot of people just acknowledged they didn't really want to do it. And I find that really inspiring because, I'm a Padmasambhava practitioner, and I just find the alchemy of transformation quite interesting, and it often happens best for me under immense pressure and in quite intense conditions. I think it's hard to put into words, but But something happens. I think that's all I could say, is something magic happens. You just never know on each door, you just never know what's going to happen. So the practice is really to just keep opening to the unknown. So last week I had probably one of the worst nights I've had on the appeals that I've done, and I gave up in the end, which takes a lot for me to give up. And so I decided I was just going to come home, be kind to myself, just come home. And I thought I'd just go and get my community members some chips, which is what we do on a tough night. So I was in the chip shop, and I'd kind of let go. I'd let go of wanting anything else different because it hadn't gone so well. And then I just got chatting to this man in the chip shop who had lived in India, and ended up asking him to support Karuna, and he signed up for £25 a month. And it was a bit like something out of a film. The people behind the counter were just like, yeah!
Yeah, I guess since doing these appeals, it's just kind of really kind of come to life, I guess, the decision that I just want to ask for ordination at some point. I also want to move to Manchester as well. The Sangha here, I've had so much support from the local Sangha.
Oh, we've just been so enriched by other people in the Sangha, which just makes such a difference. So it doesn't feel like we're alone, because when something's quite challenging, you can kind of, it's quite easy to feel a bit separate because it's so consuming. But this appeal just feels, it's like there's all these threads that's made it kind of this much bigger experience than just us, much greater than just us.
Samma Sambuddhassa. Doing a Karuna appeal is a way of sort of doing something practical and tangible, ultimately, a way to relieve suffering. Samma Sambuddhassa. How can I be of service in the world? How can I be an arm of Avalokiteshvara? Samma Sambuddhassa.
We are at Adhisthana. This is the last day of Vajrasakhi being here, and we're having our tea break from our study and having some sweet potato scones.
Lunch in less than an hour.
I decided that it would be an important course for me to increase my knowledge of the Dharma, and it was my intention was to become more doctrinally articulate. That was sort of the intellectual motivation, but there were other factors that brought me here. I had been increasingly interested in my practice and wanted to deepen my practice. I had lost interest in my work and really just wanted to be on retreat all the time. So when the opportunity arose, it seemed like an amazing chance. However, it was not so easy to do it. It's 5 months and required a lot of decision making in New York. But I decided to do it, and I felt that what I learned here I could take back to New York and help our Sangha. We have a very small Sangha in New York. We have 2 order members. So I wanted to bring something back to New York.
Well, I decided to come because it felt really obvious to me as the next step, wanting to intensify the conditions in which I could practice the Dharma, wanting to be with women who had equal amount of commitment to the Dharma as well. Yes, it was a really easy decision for me after university to come to live here.
As well, man. Okay, yeah.
Are you going to? Are you going everywhere, including the lounges? Is eggs.
What's that for?
An Easter egg hunt that we're doing. Me and Alice have sneakily placed eggs everywhere.
Hello, Marianne.
Hello, Marianne.
How are you doing?
Look, I've already had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Anya, look carefully. There's a good one that's been a really good one that you need to find.
Oh, really?
That often goes with it. Yeah, a lot of these overlap.
I was inspired to come to Adhisthana because it offered what I was looking for. I wanted to make more connections with the wider Sangha. Hello, I'm Momtaz on the Young Women's Dharma course. We're currently on a work period, folding sheets. I don't know if this will encourage the boys to apply though. Yeah, if they see us doing laundry.
We're making the shrine room back into a dormitory.
Adhisthana is a beautiful place. It is also a Bhantist home, and some of the most senior order members live here as well.
We were exposed to, I think, 13 or 14 Dharmacharis who they themselves are extremely passionate about the Dharma and came here and taught us, spent a whole week with us, and their commitment and their passion really wore off. It really, you can't help but become inspired when you're around other people who are very inspired. And also being here, being near Bhante and seeing him and spending a little bit of time with him, seeing the possibility of what this practice can, what one could achieve through this practice is definitely motivates me.
My decision to come to the course was, especially at the beginning, more a heart response rather than intellectual understanding and having an intellectual motivation. But through the conversations that I had with my friends from my Sangha in Poland, it became more and more clear that my main motivation is to change my way of thinking and change my life. It's not that I didn't have a good life, I was quite happy, but I just felt that what I have is not enough, that I don't want to engage with the world and with a way of thinking that I have. So I thought that the best way to do it and to change it is to experience the Dharma teachings, living with others, working with others, leading community life, and being with the persons, with other 7 women that have the same values and the same motivations to develop and to lead spiritual life.
There's so much we learned on this course. Of course, spiritual friendship stands out as a big one, but I was also surprised at how much I learned about ethics being here. And I think that that's something that I hope to be able to bring back, is the importance of ethics, in particular the precepts and the speech precept. Because so much disharmony seems to me is derived from people not being careful about their speech and not being helpful and kind. So that was a big surprise to me, because I actually thought that the course would be more about learning and memorizing, and for some reason I don't know why, but it was really about practice. I mean, the course was a practical experience, and I learned to look at my own ethics, and a lot of that was made apparent by virtue of living in community with 7 other very serious Dharma practitioners.
Well, I took from the course lots of inspiration through different ways. I'm also taking beautiful memories of our life together and of community life. And also the connections that I've made here, beautiful spiritual friendships that I hope will be the long-term friendships for all my life.
This is the place that is very similar to what Krakow had.
How many years
I will
ago
show
we
you
done
soon.
this?
Yeah.
How
many years? In Krakow, there's a big quarry like this.
Yeah, but much bigger than this.
Are these rocks? No.
Wow. Well, I feel like I'm leaving here with a greater understanding in myself of how to live a good life. I'm only 23, but I feel there's a lot of confidence that being on this 5-month course has given me in terms of how to continue to practice and intellectually, and also being able to experience that moving into my being as well. I can't describe really what this course has given to me, because the word would be life. Life as I know is the best way to live it in this context in Triratna.
It's prostrating. Internally. Oh my.
I'm afraid I can't take anything you say seriously with a black nose.
What do you mean with a black nose?
And also a greater understanding of vision around wanting to be able to practice in the future with other like-minded women. We've had so much harmony here between all of us 8, and I'm now moving into working in a team of women at Windhorse, and would like to also just keep that vision alive no matter where I end up in the future.
So which way is it?
So it's a modern block on one of the main streets in Inverness, and you can wind your way through a number of doors and offices, and then you go in and it's like suddenly Aladdin's cave in the middle of this office block.
Well, there was nothing in here when we moved in. It was just an office space with a couple of office desks and some office chairs. So everything, the shrine, the partitions and the kitchen fitting out, was all done by the building team.
Well, it goes all the way back to Vimala Vajra 15, 16 years ago, sometime like that. Starting to go up and break out of Glasgow and launch Triratna Buddhism, or as FWO as it was in those days, out into the rest of Scotland. So he would He got himself a big Volvo hatchback and just drove around testing out different towns, and Inverness took. And Gooness City and Satchapada moved up there.
Well, it was quite different from the LBC. I found it's much smaller, obviously. The first thing I really appreciated was the friendliness, how friendly the Sangha was and welcoming to me in Satchapada when we moved at that time.
It makes a difference you have actually somewhere which is set aside full time. You know, many groups you have a Buddhist centre in a box, you know, and you've got a lending library and a Buddha and shrine cloths, and they can be very efficient, you know. And some premises you can keep it in the cupboard, so you have these wheelie plastic tubs that come out, or people take them into the cars, you know, loading cushions in it. But when you have your own space, that provides a different focus. You have more of a presence in the city, and you're seen in the city.
So we're all kind of stepping up.
Yeah.
I think that's the benefit of having a centre. Yeah, it actually makes you kind of go, right, this is as much my centre as it is Gooness City Centre, as it is, you know, and it just makes you kind of step forward and sort of take responsibility.
It belongs to everyone.
It belongs to everybody.
Satchapada led the first meditation class that I came along to, which was only a couple of months ago, and I am so honoured to have been asked to do this. I came to the Buddhist Centre to connect with like-minded people in the Highlands, and that's exactly what I find here. The teachings have helped me in all areas of my life. My relationships have improved. I'm a community psychiatric nurse, which can be a really stressful job, but I'm finding that I'm less stressed with that. And everyone that I've met has been open, honest and supportive, and that's given me the space to be open, honest and supportive as well, which has been amazing. And yeah, again, I'm just so honoured to be cutting the ribbon to open the centre, so thank you all. That's it. Thank you.
Today we're celebrating the opening of the absolutely newest Triratna Centre on the planet. In fact, it's probably the newest in the whole solar system, because I think it's been a long time since any Triratna Centres were opened in any other planet. But we don't mean to narrow things down. And life is just like a bubble, as we know. It arises, it's beautiful, and then it passes away. So at the moment we're in the arising phase of the Triratna Highlands. We're just opening this centre. So what we're doing here today is not just celebrating the opening of a building or the opening of a centre in the sense of something where we do classes, as it were. What we're celebrating today is a venue that can be a gathering place for the Sangha, for the community, for the Triratna community and beyond.
We reverence the Sangha and aspire to follow it, the fellowship of those who tread the way, as one by one we make our own commitment.
Okay, Lokeshwara. So we're Lokeshwara. So what? So how did you find today at the International Council?
It was great, but now is the best bit of the day.
Shall we start this then? We started that.
The International Council's been running now for about 4 years, I think, and took some time in the preparation. And the idea was to find a structure that would allow people from the 6 geographical areas where Triratna has presence to come together, and from those 6 areas there would be people delegated from the 3 strands of the order, the movement and the college. So that would mean that the council itself could be potentially made up of 36 people.
2, 4, 6, if you could be one group.
The International Council partly arose because Bhante made it very clear to the college around 2009 that he thought we needed to find a structure which would allow people to talk to each other across the different strands of our community. So it would allow the college preceptors to talk to people taking responsibility within the movement and within the order. And we wanted to make sure that that was international, because Triratna is an international order and community. So we put some thought, a number of people put thought into what structure might work, and this was the structure that we eventually came up with.
There are 11 order members working full-time or part-time. 50 people have asked for a donation.
I think many people, when they hear about the International Council, think, gosh, that sounds really bureaucratic and sounds like just another meeting that's, going to be really tedious. It's not been like that at all in my experience. I've really enjoyed the 3 large meetings that I've been to. The last 2 meetings, the one in Nagpur, the atmosphere was fantastic, and I think it was partly doing it in Nagaloka. It was such a good venue. And then the 3rd one we held here at Adhisthana, which was also a really good venue. And people have got to know each other better. I think the facilitation team have got better at knowing how much time to spend talking, how much time to spend maybe doing sort of more interactive exercises, how much time to just leave people for reflection and consideration, how much time for the strands to spend. Because so all the people who are there as order delegates will get together for some of the meeting. All the people from the movement will, the college people will, and then sometimes we get together in areas. So for me, it doesn't feel at all bureaucratic. It just feels like a really good way of getting people talking to each other who are coming from these different places, but have overall much the same concerns. And you can see good networking starting to build up, which is really what it's about. For me, the whole thing of the meeting is a really good way of networking across the movement. So that, if anything, I think this meeting can help create a system or a structure where we can be less bureaucratic, because people are actually in connection with each other and in connection with other real people.
Connection, the connection with others. And what happens when you're connected with others is oxytocin. Have you heard of oxytocin? What's oxytocin? It's the love hormone, so-called, or the hug hormone, isn't it?
We talked about things like ethical practice within the order. We talked about the whole question of commonality and how, how to sort of work with each other and bringing new practices into the order's pantheon of practices.
Just this sort of recognition, first of all, about the value of having a way of evaluating experiments and developments. We really need a way to do that as a community.
We talked about different geographical areas where the order might be stronger or weaker as a collective, and particular cultural things where, it was very interesting. Amala, who was there, and Shantinayaka from the US, were talking a little bit about the culture of individualism that you get there, where the individual's a very high value, and how for them they're trying to work at bringing people together so that you don't lose that strong positive sense of individuality, but how do you create collective situations with that? In India, for example, Arya Ketu and Maitri Ratna
were telling us how in some ways it's quite hard to get people to really work with individual practice, and how they almost have the other thing of, well, the collective is very important and that has strengths and weaknesses. So we just shared a lot of good practice with each other, shared experience with each other.
This harmony is what will mean that we won't thrive.
When we first set the structure up 4 years ago or so, if you imagine the structure like a mandala of six circles which come together to form the big meeting once every 18 months, then in those 6 circles there were a lot of gaps. So rather than having 6 people who could come, we were struggling to find 2 or 3 people from some places. But in the last meeting, I think we had almost every gap was filled. So that gives me a lot of optimism really for the future, that people are willing to step into that and find it even inspiring.
So we have committed that we're going to continue meeting face to face, and we have the next area council meeting is here in October. I
know that people sometimes in the order and beyond, when they hear of yet another structure, they just think, oh, groan, you know. But I really think, I hope people can participate in this at all the different levels that it exists. You know, and I always say this, and maybe it sounds a bit cheesy, but I really genuinely believe it's a channel for the bodhicitta. Something that's really important to somebody on the, you know, that's sitting in the Buddhist Centre in Auckland, or somebody in Nagpur who's got a burning issue that's important to them. If they've got somebody they can take that to, and they can trust that that can be communicated in, you know, back inwards, as it were, and, you know, inwards to that international council meeting, and then outwards to each of the different areas, then I just feel we can have a really good outwards and inward flow of Kalyana Mitrata, of clarity, kindness, principles, you know. So I think it's great.
The impetus behind the forming of the Kula was, in a sense, for people who were interested in taking some kind of sort of social action, or there was a political issue that they felt really passionate about, an environmental issue, that actually there was an opportunity for people just to get other Buddhists together to actually do something about it. So the idea was it would be really grassroots, actually.
I know I was really struck on a climate change march that we did, and you know, a few people who were kind of real political activists, veterans who've been on, you know, hundreds and hundreds of marches, just said, gosh, you know, this just feels so different to actually be with other Buddhists. It's really joyful and peaceful, and there's not the anger that's usually associated with being on demonstrations and marches. So yeah, that for me just said, oh well, you know, that's where things can be different.
Buddhist Action Month this year, there was a theme of caring for the environment. So the idea was to put together a schedule of events for Manchester Buddhist Centre. So we did everything from sort of nature walks where people can learn a little bit more about kind of biodiversity and the sort of and the natural world and in Manchester. So we had a nature walk around Withenshaw Park. We did some partnership work with other agencies. For example, a charity called Clean Up Salford, where we did a litter pick in Salford.
The other one as well, which was just a huge success, I think we had about 45 people come and meditate with us out in the streets of Manchester. So right in the centre of a busy shopping area, straight after work. So you've got, you know, busy with shoppers, busy with kind of after work people, and then suddenly you've got 40 odd people sat down in full meditation posture. A few of us kind of had leaflets and things like that, and we're just generally around the group. You know, if people wanted to come and join and sit down, then we could give them a cushion and things like that.
There's kind of an emerging issue in the UK with people who basically, because of welfare benefit reforms and things like that. They're actually living sort of in poverty, really. You know, people don't have enough to eat. So food banks have become not just important for homeless people, they've also become important for people living in properties as well. So collecting food and giving it to food banks enables other people to eat.
Do that together.
It's not anything grandiose, you know, it's not about necessarily changing the world. It's just like there's a need there. We can do something about it.
Right, we've got some nice warm scarves.
So it's really simple. So, you know, the booth centre distributing it, so we were just doing the collection. So yeah, some empty cardboard boxes, a few posters, a few signs, and again, yeah, you just got these boxes in reception that people's generosity just poured into.
I do think it really helps us be less self-centred. I mean, I imagine about 95% of my time thinking about myself, really. And I do, and that's the truth of it. And actually, if we're able to do more, and actually, you know, we're actually looking out into the world and seeing other people suffering and doing something about it, and we're trying to help in whatever small way, it does help us become less self-centred.
The Buddhist Centre is the heart of our community, isn't it? It's the heart of the Sangha. And I think our vision from an engaged Buddhist school in terms of the building is that this place is a living example of our ethics, of our ethical practice. So, you know, that we are selecting green energy, that it is obvious when you come and visit this building as either, you know, a member of the public or whether you're an order member coming from another centre, that actually we take our ethical practice really seriously.